In today's video, we're going to be installing this Viofo A129 Duo Plus dash cam. This will be a no-nonsense install as well as a no-nonsense review of the product. The install is very straightforward. There are just a couple things that you're going to need to know going into it. So I'm going to make sure to cover those topics in depth. I'm going to be installing the product on a 1985 Dodge truck. But everything I talk about, I will teach you how to do it on a newer vehicle as well. So just because I'm doing this on an older vehicle, don't tune out at this point. Make sure you follow along. So let's get started. Let's open this up and I'll talk to you about why I chose this product. So here's a couple of the things I got. Again, the Viofo A129 Plus Duo. So it's a front and rear dash cam. It's got Wi-Fi so you can connect it to your phone. It's got some really cool features such as parking mode. So that's why I chose this one. They have a bunch of different models, but this is the one I settled on. I also picked up the dashcam Hardwire Kit. This was $15, and I'm gonna use this because I don't want to have to always have this plugged into my cigarette lighter. Also, for the parking mode to work, you have to have it hardwired in. So you need this hardwire kit so it's always plugged in so it can sense sound or vibration to turn on during the parking mode. I also bought this lens filter for the front-facing camera just so the sun doesn't cause any glare or anything. I also got a micro SD card, which I don't have sitting here. I'll put a link to everything here in the description of the video so that you can access it easily and you can use those for your convenience. So let me show you what's in the box real quick and then we'll head out and install it. Okay, so we have first this foam holding the front-facing camera and the rear-facing camera. We've got our instruction manual right here. We have our cigarette lighter plug-in. We have a charging cable, a couple cable clips in case you don't have trim. I'm going to show you how to use this trim tool on a more modern vehicle, but my vehicle is a little older. I don't have a headliner, so I'm going to be using a lot of these clips. So I actually bought some more. So that's all you get. And again, the hardwire kit is what you really need if you want this model to work to its fullest potential. So let's head out to the truck. I'll show you this all mounted up, and then I'll show you in detail how to wire in this hardwire kit. It can be a little bit tricky, but I'll show you everything you need to know whether you have an older or a newer vehicle. So along with the camera setup and everything I've shown you so far, there's a few other things you're gonna need. This is a fuse tap. I bought a bundle of 10 of these for $10 on Amazon. Now I have the older, larger fuses, so you need to check your vehicle and make sure you get the same size fuse that you have. It's either gonna be these standard ones or the mini ones. I'll put a link in the description to all of these. Another thing I ordered were more of these clips. The kit came with 5, but I needed more than that because I don't have a headliner. You may not need more than the kit came with if you have a headliner and trim in a modern vehicle. And the last thing that's a must-have is a circuit tester. These are super cheap. Again, I'll put this in the description below. But this is something you're gonna have to wire these in correctly. All right, so I mounted the rear camera right here. Now, ideally, I would have liked this to sit up higher so it could have a better vantage point out past the bed of my truck. But one critique of this product is the cord that comes into the rear view camera comes straight in. It's not a 90-degree cord, and ideally, that's what I would have liked. With it coming straight in, I can't sit the camera up against here because my seal on my window hits the cord and won't let it plug in. So I've mounted it down here a little bit lower. It's fine, it works. But in your vehicle, you may be able to get up a little higher with where you mount it at. So I got it mounted, and I used some of these wire holders to mount the wire all the way up front. And as of right now, I don't have a headliner, but I will be putting a headliner in here, so that will cover all of that up. So some of you may be concerned that the cable going to the rear camera might not be long enough if you have a big vehicle. I can assure you that's not the case. Let me show you. Here's where I have mine. This is all extra cable, and this is a crew cab truck. I would almost guarantee that this cable is enough to install this in a vehicle the size of a Suburban or a Tahoe or something like that. So I just bundled all this cable up. I used some cable clips to hold this up there, and then I just closed my sun visor for right now. Once I get my headliner installed, I'll hide it a little bit better, but for now it works great. So there you can see this is the cable coming in for the rear facing camera right into the side. Now the power cable is right here coming into the top, and I just ran it along the front of the windshield. and ran it down my A pillar right here behind the trim. Now to use the trim tool, it's actually very easy, very intuitive. This is basically a little crowbar that you slide in under, whether it's the seal or the trim, you pry away, and if you had the cord here, you could use your finger to push the cord in as you slid the trim tool along the seal or the trim. So it's very, very easy. You don't have to take all the trim off. It may be a little finicky depending on the vehicle and how your trim is mounted, but it's doable and it's something that everyone should be able to do. Now comes the little bit more tricky part of mounting it with the Hardwire Kit. So let me show you in detail how to do that. All right, here we have our fuse box. Now this will be different depending on what vehicle you have, but they're all very similar. So the first thing you need to determine is if you have these regular fuses or if you have the mini fuses. So my truck's older, it's got the regular ones. If your vehicle's newer, it may have smaller mini fuses. That becomes important when we get to doing the fuse splitter, which I will show. So we need to find a constant power source and an accessory power source. The easiest way to do that is if you think about in your vehicle what things work when your keys are not in the ignition. So usually your door locks will work, your brake lights will work, your turn signals will work, things like that. So I've got my test light here. I've grounded it to a bolt on the floor. And what I'm going to do, let's try door locks right here. I'll hold this so you can see it. And you can see the keys are not in the ignition. Hold it in both sides of the fuse, and that has power to it. I could try the stop lamps. Same thing, just like that. Now for the accessory fuse, you have to think about what things do not work unless the keys are on. A prime example is the radio. So if I come here, stick it in the fuse, both sides, nothing, okay? Nothing, nothing. I could try the cigarette lighter, same thing, not gonna work unless the keys are on. So here's what we have to do. We know the radio or the cigarette lighter will work, so what we're going to do is actually pull that fuse out, and this is a critical step that I see missed in a lot of videos. So we pull that fuse out, now we're going to turn the keys to accessory, and then we need to determine which side is hot when the accessory comes on. So we'll put it in here, that's on, and the top side it's off. So we know the side of the fuse that's closer to the floor is hot when the accessory comes on. And I'll explain why that's important when we get to the fuse tap. Okay, so we have our accessory fuse right here. We have our constant power right here. We'll take that out. And let's grab a couple fuse taps. All right, so here we have our fuse tap. And this is basically a mechanism that we can take one fuse slot and actually turn it into two fuse slots and run an accessory wire to our accessory. So a couple things that are important with these fuse taps that I see skipped quite a bit. First, on an accessory fuse, we found that the bottom slot was the hot slot. If you see where the wire is coming into the fuse tap, the spade that's furthest away from where the wire comes in is the spade that you want to be in the hot side. Okay, so on your accessory fuse. So for example, we're going to be mounting this like this in this orientation. The other thing is you still need to put your original fuse. We pulled it for the radio. You need to put that in, and you want the original fuse to be the one that's closest to the new spades. Okay, so we'll put our old radio fuse right in here, and that's a 15 amp fuse. And then we're going to put a 5 amp fuse for our new accessory right here. Okay. And then we just need this bottom spade to go downward, just like that. Now on our constant power fuse, when the fuse was in, both sides were giving us power because the circuit was connected. But now that there's no fuse in there, we do need to check this. The top side is not giving us power and the bottom side is, okay? So we need to have the fuse tap in the exact same orientation as we had it right here. All right, so there we go. Now you can see I actually changed where I put these fuses at. They're still in an accessory and a constant power, but where I had them before, the wires that come out of the fuse tap and the size of the fuse tap wouldn't allow them both to be in there at the same time. So I moved them to a different slot, but still we have an accessory power and a constant power. Now these come with crimp butt connectors that you can use. I'm actually going to cut these off and solder my connections just because I like that a little bit better for security. So we'll do that, and then we should be able to tidy everything up and make sure the camera works. Alright, I have both the connections soldered and heat shrinked, so those are good to go. You'll notice I actually shortened the wires because they were super long and I don't need that much. Now the last thing we do is hook up the ground. So the ground can be hooked up to many different places. You want a bolt that goes to a significant metal structure that ties into the body and the frame of the vehicle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook mine up. I have a screw right under here that's perfect. It's got a metal bracket right here, and this does attach to the firewall and the whole body of the truck. So I'm going to attach it there. But before I attach it, I'm actually going to try and button all this stuff up a little bit so I can get my wire management where I want it, get everything bundled up. Another thing I should show you is this little control module. So this is to tell the camera to not turn on if the battery voltage drops below a certain amount. So 11.8, 12.0, 12.2, 12.4. The instructions suggest have it on 12.0 for the most part. Unless the weather is really cold, then bringing it up. So we're in the winter here. I'm going to set mine at 12.2 for right now, and we'll see. I may have to adjust it. So I'm going to put my fuse block all back up together, get the wires all bundled together, and then I'll mount my ground and we'll go ahead and try it out. All right, we've got it all installed. Let's go do some drive testing on it and see how the quality of the video is, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on the product at the end of the video, which I do have some criticism of the product, so make sure to stay tuned for that. All right guys, so we have it all set up. I've tested it a few times. I've downloaded some of the footage, and I'm very pleased with it. I'm pleased with the picture quality. I'm very happy with the fact that it's got a front and rear facing camera. I mentioned before I wish the rear facing camera could go up higher, but it can't on my truck. It would be nice to be able to see further past the bed, but in the same light, it's kind of cool to be able to see in the bed as well. As a YouTuber, that may be a cool vantage point to add into some of my footage, but for most people who would be using this for liability protection if they got in an accident, you want to see out past the bed. So that's one little thing that I've noticed with it, a little critique. I'm also really curious to see how that little module does, modulating the battery and when it will and won't turn on for the parking mode. This is an older diesel truck with one battery in it, and it takes every bit of that one battery to start this truck. So if it drains at all, it won't be able to start. So I'm curious to see how that is in the long run, but overall, I'm impressed with the quality. I think it's a very nice upgrade. It's a very nice new technological little thing to add to an older vehicle or a newer vehicle if that's what you're putting it in. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope that helped with the install. Thank you for your support on my channel and my videos, and we'll see you guys in the next video.